On this episode of Sidebar Forever, we end our celebration of Star Wars Month with a discussion of The Rise of Skywalker. Directed by J.J. Abrams, this ninth and final chapter in the Star Wars saga does its best to tie things up neatly while leaving a few doors open for future spin-offs. As big fans ourselves, we do our best to discuss the film fairly, with spoilers, but also to illuminate some of the challenges Abrams faced in taking on this herculean task. And hey, if you love the show, be sure to find us on sidebarforever.com. And don't forget to follow us on our socials, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you want to drop us a line, please do so at sidebarforever@gmail.com.
Good morning, Dr. Silberman. How's the knee?
Did you just have a brain fart?
I know Taekwondo.
Stop eating my sesame cake!
You're killing me, Smalls.
Fuck with me, and we'll see who shits on the sidewalk.
Come quietly, or there will be trouble.
Clearly, I wasn't talking to you, big titties. You cherub-looking motherfucker.
While you were still learning how to spell your name, I was being trained to conquer galaxies.
The real question is, what are those?
Let's go ahead and start with the Rise of Skywalker, which is obviously.
So you want to go back? You want to go backwards, yo?
Well, I'm just saying in terms of the Rise of Skywalker as it relates to what we were discussing, prior to the recording. How it's the final punctuation on 40 years of Star Wars. Going back to 1977.
For the Skywalker saga. That is. Yeah. I mean, this is going to be more.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Yeah. That's what I meant for sure.
Right.
And obviously we can talk about other things as it relates to that, but and you and I had a conversation about what we thought about the film and how successful it was or unsuccessful it was.
Right.
I think you were of the opinion that you kind of liked it. I enjoyed it, but I think that again. Rian Johnson's Last Jedi, at the very least, even though I didn't enjoy all of the chances he took and the big swings that he took some swings. He tried some shit.
That he did.
You know what I mean? I mean, he definitely attempted to try to like unsettle the Earth. The Star Wars Earth and make it fertile ground to do new things. And then as much as J.J. Abrams and his co-writer, Chris Terrio, as much as he and Chris Terrio want to say they didn't want to try to, reverse what Rian Johnson did, that's bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's literal and complete bullshit. Of course you did.
Right. And to me, why wouldn't he? Because what Rian Johnson did, while arguably, yes, he did do some unsettling, which is very accurate, and he did do some, he has some conceptually interesting ideas. Mm-hmm. You really don't want to pull that kind of energy into a saga of this kind at the last minute. It's not one of those things like you can't, not to say you don't want to challenge the unknown, but you don't really need to. You need to stay the course and introduce things subtly.
That's not challenging the unknown.
Well, I mean,
that's leaving the unknown. That's leaving it as is, safe. Don't do anything weird. Don't do anything different. Give me what I want. Fan service only. Don't have a brain. Don't do anything creative or imaginative. Don't do anything at all to deter me from what I expect. Otherwise, I will turn on you, and that's what they did.
Well, but there's other ways of approaching it. Like, there's other good ways of approaching it. There's other ways of doing both things, like challenging the unknown and giving fan service at the same time. It doesn't mean to defile the sacred earth that built Star Wars, which is basically what he did. You know,
but see the thing about this, as far as I hate to keep interrupting.
No, it's all good.
As far as the last 3 films are concerned, this is the thing that perplexes me about a fan like yourself. Okay. And I mean, I'm not dislike you,
right?
But okay, Force Awakens comes out, all the hardcore Star Wars fans shit on it and say it's too much like the original movies. Then Rian Johnson comes along and does 2/3 of what he does is really, really unsettling, to go back to that word, to the true hardcore Star Wars fans. And then J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio come along and do all the safe shit, and then you all say, "Oh, now we like it."
Well, what he did was he tied up all loose ends that Ryan left over. He did for the most part, To me, I mean, there's some things. I mean, arguably, there's some things which he couldn't tie up. I mean, and probably shouldn't, because and he actually made other things more evident in terms of the whole idea of what Star Wars had become. So it was weird, man. It was weird. I mean, I like it. You know, it doesn't have the same majesty. It doesn't sit with me the way the old films do. When I say old, I mean the original series. But that's just because of
it never could.
It never could, because that's the age that I approached it at. You know, that was my virginal touch and virginal exposure to it. You know.
You always remember your first.
You always remember your first. You know. You know. Never as good as the first time, like Sade said. You know. Mm-hmm. But, you know, that being said, you know, I think that JJ did the best he could with what was left after the fiasco that Ryan left.
So let me ask you this: Why do you think that they chose? And I keep saying they because as co-writer, you know, I would hold him just as much responsible or credited as JJ, you know, to some extent. Why did they introduce all these fucking new characters in this last film? It was ridiculous.
Well, no, that's the thing, though. He didn't. Those things are seedlings for new films.
No, I get that, but you can just do new films. In other words, if you're trying to tie up 40 years of history and prequels and original trilogies and characters that you introduced in the last 2 films of this present trilogy, why in the 3rd film, the last of this trilogy, and the last in the 40 years or whatever, you introduce all these new characters and new situations, and it's like, you know, you barely got time to spend any time with any of these characters, and much of the heavy lifting and what those characters had to offer could have been handled by characters who had been introduced previously. In other words, do we really have time to feel Chewie and Rey and Finn and Poe and Rose Tico now from the last film? And, you know, we didn't really have time to feel them.
I agree.
We got Jana, we got Bliss, Kerry Russell's character. We got, you know, just all this other extra shit.
I agree. I think there's two answers to that. One is that they don't know how to handle Star Wars. Ultimately, I mean, it's a thing. It's a new property. I think JJ laid a good groundwork for it. I think because the way that Disney actually handled the whole IP initially was they gave it to different directors to do what they want to do with it, but one's based on their own track record and how they trusted them. I think instead of being some kind of collusion in terms of story, like having a Kevin Feige machine behind things, which allows you to say, okay, this is the direction things are going. That lack of solidified direction is why the films turned out the way they did. I think when you have a good groundwork laid out for you, like, you know, when we have a good groundwork, a good seeding, like Force Awakens, you know, you had.
But you didn't like Force Awakens.
Well, in hindsight, you know, the connective tissue was the first and the last. I mean, it wasn't great. You know what I'm saying? By any stretch of imagination, but it was a Star Wars film, and I'm a fan of all Star Wars films, just based because of the fact that I'm a Star Wars shill. You know, I'm that guy.
Okay.
So I always like Star Wars stuff, whether it's the greatest thing or not, you know, is a question to me. So I think, you know, Force Awakens it had the makings of a great trilogy. Like if JJ stayed on it from beginning to the end, it might the Rise of Skywalker might have been different versus letting somebody else come in.
See, that's where I think we might actually agree in that it just should have been J.J. Abrams all the way through.
Yeah, just run it.
They just should have let him do all 3 films.
Or let Rian Johnson do all 3 films, one or the other.
Something.
Yeah, one person's vision or the other person's vision. Not. It's like an annoying thing we dealt with as kids, man. Right? So we got into X-Men for Claremont and Byrne, and there'd be some guest artists in there someplace. I don't want to see this shit. You know what I'm saying? I didn't come to see.
Well, and it kind of is like an inventory issue, or like some weird insert where it's like, what? And I can remember reading comics as a kid and thinking, okay, what was this?
Right.
What happened to the thing that we were on last issue?
Right.
Well, somebody had the flu, or something happened. Production ran behind, and they inserted this one-off story in, and then continued on from there.
I mean,
it's like, okay,
it's jarring. I mean, you have an issue where it's Claremont and Byrne, then you get fucking Fred Himbeck, and then it's back to Claremont and Byrne again. That's for the old head reference.
Goddamn Freddie.
Oh man. But yeah, man. So that's what it is for me, man. I mean, are they great? No. I mean, again, I can't state this enough. I think the expanded universe in today's climate is the salvation itself for the Star Wars universe. I think the movies inside the theaters, we'll get to this later on. Movies inside the theaters is old hat. I think it's run its course. The blockbuster film is no longer a thing which can sustain intellectual properties of this majesty. It's just not, because you're cramming all this story into a 2-hour, 3-hour block, and it's just not digestible, and it's not.
But
functional.
Marvel does it.
Well, they've done it because they've built the audience to understand it. You see what I'm saying? Like, they started off with small chunks of things, and they started adding more and more to it, and it's one universal vision.
Okay.
It was Kevin Feige's vision from the beginning. So it was like, okay, they keep adding.
But to that point, though, Star Wars should effectively be able to work in the way that it works. So if we go back to the original trilogy, it's different directors.
Yeah.
It's a couple of different writers.
Right.
It's people who are basically, again, Star Wars typically has functioned in terms of the original trilogy as, hey, bring in these folks and let them, direct. Bring in these folks, bring in Kasdan, let him write. George writes the first one. Kasdan writes the second one. I think the third one too, right? Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
So I mean, we see Star Wars be effective in that way. As a matter of fact, we see Star Wars be less effective in the prequels, which were those all written and directed by George?
I'm not sure, actually.
Okay, all right. But anyway. That may be a point for another time, but I mean, to me, that's Star Wars seemed to function pretty well doing it that way, and yet we find ourselves in the modern day, and then again, the Marvel films, as the original IPs certainly have decades upon decades of history, but like you said, I agree with you that the way they were handled is they were built upon, start at the foundation, and then finally we get to the penthouse, which is these Avengers films.
Right.
And then we see them culminate in Endgame. But anyway, so as it relates to the film, directed by J.J. Abrams and co-written by J.J. and Chris Torrio, all the original folks are back from The Force Awakens forward, and then there's some new additions. Kerry Russell as Zoe Bliss, and Kelly Marie Tran back as Rose Tico, although in a smaller role. Billy D comes back as Lando.
Right.
And then we get introduced, Naomi Ackie as Jana, and and there's some other new characters. Maz is back, and Hux is back, etc. But in general, I mean, you enjoyed Rise of Skywalker. You dug it.
Yeah, because I think more than anything, man, I think that the through line for all these movies has always been the Emperor. It's always been Palpatine. I mean, he is. If we go back to the prequels, he is the Phantom Menace. I mean, he is that guy. So he's the one behind the scenes manipulating all things for the dark side. As much as we think this is a story about the Skywalkers, this is about Palpatine's manipulation of the Skywalkers to become the Emperor. So
Don't you think it was kind of bullshit the way they brought him back, though? It's like,
I mean, here's the thing.
Here he is.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's that?
I mean, even the characters were like, "He's back. What the fuck?"
Right. I mean, to start off, it was kind of funny, is to start off the crawl with, like he's at this radio broadcast with the galaxy saying he's coming back, You know what I mean? Like an old time radio classic show.
Right.
It's like
fucking Orson Welles and shit.
Right.
This just in, Palpatine is back.
Right. It's like, okay.
Guess who's back? Back again.
Wow. I'm the real Papa, the real Papa, the real.
That's it.
But no, here's a
damn, that motherfucker spitting.
Right. But the thing about Palpatine, man, the thing about Ian McDiarmid in particular, man, Ian's so majestic, dude. Like when he speaks, man, you fucking listen, dude. So I mean, he's.
That's true.
He's like, wow. And the fact he repeated the same, dark side of the Force, the pathway to all abilities, or some abilities, the dark side of the Force is the pathway to some ability. Hold on, let me get it right. This is important. The dark side of the Force is a pathway to some abilities. No, get it right. Rewind. Thinking. The dark side of the Force is the path to shit. It's not a path to shit.
It's a path to shit, yo.
Okay, got it. The dark side of the Force is the pathway to some abilities. God damn it. I'll look it up. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah. Anyway, bringing Palpatine back was like, what? How? Who? I just personally think that that this final film would have been better served without bringing in so many extra characters, and instead of that horseshit ass ending of trying to offer redemption for Kylo Ren or Rendemption or Raydemption, if you will.
Right.
I just thought that it would have been better have him be the big baddie,
right?
Not have him be I'm gonna go back to being Ben. I'm no longer part of the Knights of Ren or whatever. No, just have him be the big baddie,
right?
And it totally felt like Rey. The idea of her saying, "Hey, I always did want to take your hand, but I couldn't, for other reasons." That was fine,
right?
But the kiss at the end, he's a mass murderer.
Yeah,
he's a mass fucking murderer who killed his dad.
Right. And it was like crazy, yo. That made no sense to me. I didn't see the romantic tension at all. There was no reason why she should have been interested in this guy at all, other than maybe some kind of kinship oriented type situation because of what they were the dyad, which we'll get into in a minute. Well, pause right here for a minute. I'm gonna give you that quote from the dark side, and then it goes: "The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural."
Oh yeah, I remember that. I didn't know that was the one you were reaching
for. That's my shit. That is my shit, yo. That is my shit. So, all right. But anyway, yeah, man. I mean, that whole kissing thing was weird to me, dude. It was uncomfortable. I saw them more as being more like brother and sister than anything. It was more like it was like a time that.
Like cousins,
Yeah.
I'm a descendant of a dark figure. You're a descendant of a dark figure.
Right.
We're kind of in the same family and shit.
Right.
It's second cousins.
Right.
Like, ugh.
Right.
Ugh.
It's like
nasty.
Right. It's like a kiss before dying, yo. Cue seal music. A prayer for the dying. It wasn't great, dude. It wasn't great. It was weird to me. It was really kind of.
It was like a Pornhub link, yo. Like some kind of taboo stepsister shit, yo.
I don't know if I go that far, but it was weird, dude. It was forced, no pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended.
Yeah, man.
And I get why they kind of wanted to kind of go there. This idea that they have this connection that they don't understand,
right.
And that they and that the films don't really fully explain, and they go back and forth, and maybe all along, Kylo, sensed within her that the Force is strong in this one, but it's a dark. It's a dark connection.
Right.
It's not a connection or a recognition of the light within her. It's definitely the dark side.
Right.
So,
right.
That just felt weird, and like I said, and this is my thing. I've heard a lot of other people say this, and I have to kind of agree that while not perfect, I think Kylo Ren made for a very interesting Star Wars villain.
Yeah.
Because he actually had ethos. He actually had emotion. He actually had complexity to him that was recognizable and, for me, interesting to engage with. Not perfectly so, but interesting to engage with. Like, the petulance. And yet you could see, wow, if this guy really got got a purchase on his emotions, he would really be something dangerous.
Right.
In terms of, what he was out for. But what were you going to say?
I'm sorry. I think you're right. I think, initially, when we first introduced Kylo Ren, when he steps off that ship and stops that laser bolt and holds it for a nice duration, dude. It's like, fuck.
That was crazy, yo.
It's like, fuck, this guy's powerful, man.
Yeah, yo. Because we hadn't seen something like that before. Yeah. Not really. Yeah. I mean, we saw Vader like deflecting shit, but not like stop.
Yeah. A huge like burst, man. That's just. I mean, he was just there. It was just like rotating, like it was held in stasis, and it wanted to be set free, But it was crazy. It was like, this guy is formidable. Okay, this guy's got powers. He's off the charts. Right. And then, I think it lost for me when it lost its interest for me is when he took his helmet off. It's okay. This is a little doughy faced kid. He's not. This guy's not like rugged, or he's not. The thing about Vader is he was always a mystery to the end. And I think when he took that helmet off, it destroyed the mystery, destroyed my connection to the dark side. And I saw the ability for him to be compromised at that point, because the helmet shields you from things. It's like what they said in Watchmen. You wear a mask to hide the pain. Well, you also wear a mask to shield yourself from other things that may impact you environmentally, right? So
but see, for me, it was exactly the opposite. To me, it added to the idea that, okay, this guy's he's a 12-year-old in a 25-year-old's body.
Right. Okay.
He's not really had a childhood because he's been kind of reared to be this, this force-wielding, combatant / instrument of the dark side.
Right.
Since he was little.
Right. Well, no, but he wasn't that though. He was meant to be a Jedi. Like that's why he went to Uncle Luke.
Well, that's why I said combatant or a warrior / now villain.
Right. Okay.
And then he became what he became. So for me to be able to see and to have that mystery not be there, I thought that was interesting to me, because it's like, okay, so to your point about masks and hiding things, that's one of the differences in how some cultures see masks. I believe it's in some South American cultures. They actually put masks on to bring out who they really are.
Right. Yeah.
Like they put on the mask, and then the thing that they've been repressing and pushing down now comes to the fore.
Right.
So masks can be used in a variety of ways, not just to hide your identity.
Sure, like the luchadors, like the luchadors, the ones that are
essentially, yeah. That's why decorative and fire and demonic eyes. It's like, yes, I am that kick-ass motherfucker.
El Diablo,
and my shit's coming out. Yeah, El Diablo, El Cuco.
Exactly. But yeah, that's a good point, man. That's a good point. I mean, and I think that's one of the things that masks always accentuated for me, essentially, was, it was the thing where, this person was really showing you who they really were, the dynamics of who they were. That was the success of the Stormtroopers design, and the success of Vader's design initially was this guy was really, really showing you just how dark and how sinister he was and how his minions were. That was the failing of the initial impact of the Emperor the first time we saw him on board not Death Star, on board the Vader's Star Destroyer, when he knelt before him the first time. What is thy bidding? What is thy bidding, master? And he was this puffy-eyed dude with, remember how they replaced that initial video vidcom with McDermott's visage, because they took it was weird. That was just one person. That was okay. That was I think he said it was like an actor that had like a monkey's face superposed on his face with the crude way they did the visual effects back then. So that's why he had that whole crazy looking puffy eye thing going on. It wasn't just it wasn't any kind of prosthetics. It was just like a video comp. So anyway, but yeah, man, I think yeah, I mean, kind of like Kylo after the second film. The first film, he felt like a whiny kid to me, especially when he killed his father. And to your point, I mean, he should have been irredeemable in the last film. I mean, he killed his pops. He's killed thousands of others. Yeah.
I mean, it opens with him slaughtering.
Right. It's true. Needlessly.
I mean, it was a battle.
Right.
I guess, right?
No,
I mean,
it wasn't though. They were settlers. They weren't doing anything.
Oh, so yeah. So it wasn't even a battle.
Right.
It was just genocide.
Yeah, dude,
Tribalistic genocide.
Yeah, dude. He committed the ultimate sin, dude. He killed Max von Sydow. But that I'll never forgive him.
Never to be forgiven.
No. So, I don't know. But to your point, man, I mean, there's plenty of holes in it, in Rise of Skywalker. The Sith in the Mist inside of the little arena, that they're sitting there like little bitty, like minions, or like in this.
Like what was that, yo?
It was weird, dude.
Were they really there? Were they not there?
Yeah,
if they weren't there, it's like, how did they appear?
Right.
If they were really there,
Right.
did they just sit by and watch her slaughter fucking Palpatine?
Right, a little like Misty Jawas in the background, It was weird.
Yeah, like what? It's like the fucking Roman Colosseum,
Right.
and
Right.
he's all plugged up to these coils and shit.
Right.
And anyway, it was just very strange.
Yeah, it was weird, dude. It was weird. I mean, I don't know.
And where did Lando get all of those ships?
Well, those people that were
Like out of nowhere. It's like, I mean, he just. What were you doing? Like sending out the like a fucking mass text across the galaxy.
It was a live wire across the galaxy, dude. I guess they were trying to pull up all the last vestiges of rebellion.
Calling all cars.
Right.
Calling all cars.
Right? This is our last time, guys. Palpatine's back. We don't stop him now. It's over. And I guess Lando can be very persuasive in the way that others can't. And Chewie, Chewie, the two of those guys together, I guess they managed to pull up the last of the fleets that were interested in possibly challenging Palpatine's rise. So, I mean, it was more a rise of Palpatine than it was a rise of Skywalker, dude. If you really want to get down to it. Go ahead.
Well, that was one of the debates, not a debate, but one of the points that my buddy D was bringing up. He was saying he felt like the Rise of Skywalker was more about Kylo than it was about Rey.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense of, him, Kylo Ren descending and then, Ben coming, moving to the fore and returning to us. But I don't know. I didn't really care. I mean, there was a point in the movie where I just wanted it to be over and I just didn't really care anymore.
What point was that, yo?
As it got along, there were a couple of points in there where I actually laughed out loud.
Okay.
Where I was like when the Luke the Force Ghost walks out of the fire,
right.
I laughed out loud.
Okay.
And all the shit that he says, a Jedi should treat their weapon as a sacred. It's like, okay, JJ and Chris Terrio, you're trying to reverse what Rian Johnson did.
Right.
When Kylo Ren says, yeah, they had to fake, they had to take on an assumed identity and pretend that they were nobody. Of course you're trying to reverse what he did. Of course that's what you're doing.
Right.
But if you didn't like it, why didn't you go to Kathleen Kennedy and say, yo, what the fuck is this shit in his script, yo?
Right.
Fuck this motherfucker.
Maybe didn't have.
Go do Knives Out.
Right. Maybe didn't have the script though. Maybe it was they kept things so hush hush to where they didn't give the scripts out like that, dude. They've been known to.
Well, that's
good.
But I mean, again, you should have a
second AD,
and maybe Kennedy is not equipped or is not, this isn't her her area of expertise, but then you should have someone who should be like a story editor or someone who's kind of watching the overarching story and saying, "Oh, these are kind of conflicting ideas here." Because even if the productions are overlapping, the stories are probably done.
You would think.
Even if the script is being rewritten as, people get new pages and they change things, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But the story, I would imagine at some point was fleshed out. It's like, okay, we're going to do this, and this, and this, and this.
Right.
It's like, wait a minute, guys, hold on. You know,
right? Should have been locked. Should have been locked.
So,
and those are big fuck yous to Ryan. I agree. But at the same time, like I look at it from the perspective of some of the things I've seen inside of old spaghetti martial arts movies. It kind of holds true to some of the things they may have done in terms of the change in terms of the tone. Like you have the old master that's like doesn't want to be the old master anymore, and he's kind of like, okay, I'm gonna give up on all this. And the last minute he comes in and changes his mind and saves the day. That's kind of that was the kind of tone and timbre that I saw with that. So I mean, so that was
not done perfectly, but I thought that was a fine representation of somebody who said, "Oh, I saw my brief mentor be killed. Mm-hmm. I see my father go to the dark side and then meet his ultimate demise. Mm-hmm. I see my nephew, whom I'm trying to raise in the religion. I see him go the way of the dark side." Mm-hmm. This shit ain't what it's cracked up to be. I'm going to step away from it.
Right.
Because now I'm taking on this legendary status, and people are looking at me to be some kind of messiah. And guess what happens to messiahs? They all die.
Yeah.
So I thought that was reasonable. Not perfectly executed, but it was a reasonable position for Luke to take. And for him to come back in the end and not like, oh, I'm going to beat Kylo Ren. I'm going to beat my nephew and cut him in half. Mm-hmm. Like fucking, Ben Solo in A New Hope, he basically fools him and sacrifices himself so that the others can live to fight another day.
Right, which is what messiahs do too. They sacrifice themselves for the greater good of everybody else around them. So he still fulfilled that role regardless of how he chose to get it done. Right. So I don't know. Mixed reviews on the last trilogy. There are things which they could have done better. There are things which could have been worse. I think
could always be worse.
Yeah, it could ultimately, I think it did kind of reinvigorate the franchise. Initially, I think there's some things which they've can take spin-offs from now and plug into the Disney Plus app and really make some give some good stories too. I think storytelling has come such a long way now. Now it's no longer just a visual medium. When it comes to movies, the whole idea behind movies is they're the pictures which move, and that's not a fair assessment of what goes on now. Now it's a storytelling medium which has a beginning, middle, and end, and then it has various other things out there to allow it to, spurn on to other greater things, new heights as far as storytelling goes. So.
Well, let me ask you, when you say that, do you mean just in terms of now? Because prior to current day, television was not a part of the EU.
Right.
Now it is.
Right.
And now it can be. So now we can have, now the line has many ticks, can have many ticks on it instead of 1, 2, 3.
Right.
15 years, 1, 2, 3. 15, 20 years, 1, 2, 3. Now we can have little ticks in between to add to the density of the whole continuum, so to speak.
Right. I mean, I think some of the more examples of that in terms of, of course, The Mandalorian has been very, very successful. We started off kind of slow, but it actually picked up steam after the second episode. So. It was good. I mean, it's small little tidbits of a movie, of a show that had a character which was interesting that we want to know more about as far as the whole Mandalorian saga goes. So that was good. And they do more like that, which they will because it was successful. Then we'll start to see the potential for live action or somewhat live action Star Wars movies come to bear, come to the fore. I don't, I still think they can do more movies. I just think it's not really totally necessary in today's climate to do movies. I think there's an audience built in for them, obviously, but I think that audience is receding more than the ones that are buying into the new age of storytelling. The whole Netflix, Prime, Disney Plus, et cetera, app functions are taking over everybody's lives in terms of instantaneous, entertainment. You know.
Well, to your point, I was going to ask you a question, but to buttress that point, you know, in my discussions today, as far as pop culture is concerned, you know, media, film, TV, etc.,
right,
and even extending to like music and other things, I'm always thinking about them more so in the idea of how we consume them and how the technology influences it, as opposed to the content itself and how interesting or how provocative or how endearing the content is. Let's push that aside, because what you're talking about is like for my daughter, who's a teenager, 15 years old, people in her generation, they're not big moviegoers. At least not her friends, and not the friends of my peers who have teenage children.
Right.
They're not big moviegoers. They go to the movies, but they don't go as much as we did.
Right.
And that's because they have so many things available to them on their phone. So now the idea of doing a television show like Stranger Things or like The Mandalorian, or or Fleabag or The Boys or anything else, those things are more ripe to be consumed by a younger audience and actually have a future in terms of, hey, we're going to do more of these, and that audience is going to build upon another audience is going to build upon another audience. So I do think that in terms of the movies, yeah, that is one reason why I think the films, while still wildly successful at the box office, they're probably not going to resonate, and those ripples aren't going to reach the far away shores like they used to, because there's so many other things, as we just talked about a minute ago, to kind of fill in the blanks. But I was going to ask you, in terms of this last trilogy, what you had to say about the trilogy. Do you think, and I do think this, do you think that to some extent it's because we got too much Star Wars too quickly?
It's a good question.
The idea that we got a film basically every, 2 years?
Right.
Less than 2 years, maybe, in some cases?
Right. Yeah, I think the shock and awe of what we had as kids from the 70s forward to the late 80s was we didn't know when they were coming out, and there was no internet to pump them up. There was no machine in place that gave you instantaneous access to the dailies. There was no concept art leaking out unless you went to the store to find it and purchase it. There was no paparazzi.
There was just fans exchanging things and meeting up and communicating with each other by phone or in person or at a comic shop or at a Star Wars
convention.
Fan convention of some kind. That's it.
Yeah.
And those would probably be fewer and farther between. And so now you can wear that shit out in, a teaser trailer can be worn out in days.
Yeah.
A fucking day.
Yeah. So I think that's a disadvantage. I think there's an embarrassment of riches, and I think there's so many multiple choice ideas out there that you can have.
Good term.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That you can you can go out there and just get stuff, and it's like, dude, it's at my fingertips, and because of that, they have to find other ways of getting you into the story. They subscribe to genres now. There's a genre for everything for everybody. I mean, even on YouTube now, when they see that you like certain things, they put subsections that you just go to those subsections and watch those things.
Right.
So it's like it's data mining galore, dude. So it's like So it's like that's where they're gearing things towards. And quite frankly, man, it's sad, but I pay more for things which I don't watch than what I do watch. I watch more YouTube than anything because I'm constantly watching tutorials. I'm constantly watching various other things that I like to watch that are at my fingertips, and then the paid subscription channels that I pay for. They provide. Okay. So it's one of those things where, and I think they've got it down to a science now to where that really works in a way for the youth that would make them gravitate more towards it. Because let's put it this way, I think the youth of today, I think they're great minds and great potential, great ideas, but their attention spans are that of a gnat. And that's because of the way that they consume media. I think the media just lets them, be loose and fast, free and carefree and not engaged. Unless they really become involved with something.
But I think the thing, and we're digressing here, but as it relates to Star Wars and anything else, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
I just think that that's just what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so we may actually find in the future that they are less precious
Mm-hmm.
with some of these things as we are.
Yeah, agreed.
Which may allow for a different level of creativity and a different level of courageousness in terms of, making bold strokes on the canvas, whatever the canvas may be, film, TV,
Sure.
written word, sculpting,
Sure.
whatever it is.
Sure.
Prose, whatever your storytelling, comics, whatever your storytelling medium is,
Mm-hmm.
it may make for them to make bolder strokes because they are less precious, they are less connected, they are less, this is my, Gollum. This is my precious. I must protect it and keep it, and so maybe you might find a different level of fandom in the creators of tomorrow as a result of this.
Mm-hmm.
Again, thinking about it more so with like what you just said, how they consume it,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to us where, okay, we get some Star Wars and now we got to wait 3 years for another one.
Right.
And then maybe 5 years for another one.
Right.
And then now it's 15 years until the prequels come out.
Right.
And then, it's another 15 or 20 years until, the final trilogy comes out.
Yeah.
And, we're starving for it.
Yeah.
And now, so I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. Going back to the film, and we can maybe end it here, but what was your reaction to, what's your name, honey? What's your last name?
Oh.
I'm Ray Skywalker.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, fuck no, come on.
I'm Ray Skywalker. Yeah, that was weird, dude. It's like, okay, so I can understand why you don't want the stigma of Palpatine, because everybody knows Palpatine was the motherfucker that cast the galaxy into 20 years of war.
Right.
And
it would be like somebody saying, "Hey, what's your name?" Kenny Hitler.
Right.
What?
So I get that, but at the same time, it's like I saw it two ways. I saw it as homage to the fact that she saw their visage in front of the hovel, which was where
obviously,
and how she buried both their sabers beneath where the hovel is. That was kind of cool. So I saw it as homage, and then it was like, okay, so why would you take the name Skywalker unless you just totally don't unless you really, really felt as though, it's an interesting thing. In some cultures, man, I could be wrong about this, I'm pretty sure, but in some cultures, they actually take on the name of the master. So that whether or not you actually are a direct descendant in the line or not, you become that, as you are a pupil of that person's teachings, you are now that person. Isn't that
essentially what happened with Kylo? I mean,
right.
He's part of the Knights of Ren, and then he becomes Kylo Ren,
right,
as opposed to Ben Solo, right?
Yeah. So I mean,
to some extent,
which is the Knights of Ren were like probably one of the most wasted opportunities for character development.
They looked great.
They looked excellent. Dude.
They looked awesome. I was like, fuck yeah! When are they gonna do some shit?
Right, but he did nothing, except for that panoramic, shot on top of the dune, sand dune, and then they got
that was awesome.
That was awesome. It's like, okay, oh shit, this is gonna go down. There's gonna be some fighting here. There's gonna be some, but they didn't have no time to do that. Like they could have in a series, you could have gone off in the very
again. Go ahead. No, I'm sorry.
No.
But I'm just saying again. Introducing too much shit at the same time.
Right,
okay,
right.
Knights of Ren and this character and that character and that character, and then we're gonna planet hop like a dozen times.
Yeah, that was crazy, dude. The planet hopping was crazy, dude. That was probably one of the most annoying parts to me. I think in terms of the film, it's like it wasn't necessary to go that many different places, dude. I mean, the back and forth, like hyperspace had no consequence. It was like even the fact that even the way Poe Dameron was like skipping the Millennium Falcon through freaking hyperspace like it was nothing but a thing. It was stupid, dude.
Right.
Like you have to plot the course, otherwise your ass end up inside of a star cluster inside of a mountain, dude. That's just what it is.
And that's what they used to always say. It was like, okay, you can't just do this shit and then it's like Nightcrawler teleporting. It's like if I don't see where I'm going, I can teleport inside of a beam and kill myself.
Yeah, dude. It's like fucking they. One of the things they just totally dismissed was the first film, which was New Hope, when Han Solo tells Luke, Going to hyperspace is not like dusting crops, boy. Going to hyperspace is not like dusting crops, boy. But yet, later on in the films, they forgot about that and they were treating like it was like dusting crops. Oh, just push the button. Let's just push the button.
Right.
It's like, no.
Like, you just almost want to watch him go, yeah! like it's the fucking General Lee or some shit,
I was like, wow. So, that was disturbing. Interesting to watch visually, but disturbing. As a side note, as we talk about stories and things being developed and watch how things are, how media is blurring and how things have become more and more digitized and more accessible, video games have become more into the fore in pop culture, to where everybody's playing them in some form or fashion. And there are these AAA titles with expansive budgets and expansive ideas and concepts that are coming to the fore. They're really, really cool and interesting to watch in the development. One such is one is called Star Citizen. It catches a lot of flack and whatever, but has a really good possibilities to change the overall gaming world. And one of the things they do in terms of hyperspace and discussing it, how it's played out, they don't treat it like it's some kind of easy thing to do. Like it's literally a wormhole you have to go through and guide yourself through. And if you find yourself like getting off course, you can end up someplace you didn't want to be. So it's very much it's a precision, a game of precision, not a game of push the button jump. This is not hopscotch. This is a whirly gig, and you're asking me to get thrown off into some other kind of plane of existence, if not into a star, and I'm dead.
Yeah.
So I think that's a much more mature way of handling loose science, if you will. And I think I think story elements like that are where things are actually truly headed now, and that's what the expectations are, because they've been high. This new world of gaming, dude, has changed all expectations as far as storytelling goes.
Yeah. So
I think that's where even the fact that the new Star Wars game that came out, which escapes me right now. What's the name of that damn Star Wars game? Anyway, that game is given much more sustainable interest than the movies do, and it's sad, actually.
Yeah, as it relates to the light skipping or the hyperspace skipping or whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure as a hardcore Star Wars fan, someone who is is engaged with the Star Wars physics, you're like, okay, this is fun to look at, but dumb.
Right.
But going back to that final sequence with I'm Ray Skywalker, I have to agree with one of the hosts on the Empire podcast.
Okay.
I think it would have been much more interesting and much more poignant for her to not say I'm Ray Palpatine or Ray Skywalker, but to say I'm just Ray.
Right.
I'm just me now.
Right.
I'm not of that. I'm not of this.
Right.
I'm not of any of the things that I've been for these last 16 months or however long it's been since this whole thing started on Jakku.
Right.
I'm just Ray.
Right.
I think that would have been a great way to at least end it as far as her arc is concerned. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was just total fan service, not unlike the X-wing fighter coming out of the water on the island.
Man, I gotta tell you, man, that teared me up, bro. To see that to some degree, that was the thing which I was like, wow. So this is like when Yoda did this for him. Now it's like the circle is complete to some degree. Like him doing that for Rey.
But that
that is something.
That was the circle being complete.
Well, no, that wasn't. That was
even the training montage in the beginning was an homage back to
the
swamps
and
stuff. All of that. Yeah.
Which I gotta tell you, the biggest thing which I disliked in the film was Luke training Leia.
Oh.
With that with that god awful CGI version of her face.
Oh, it was terrible.
I was like, man, no, dude.
It was terrible. It was like they took their masks off, and I was like, this is a video game.
Right.
Oh.
I was like, dude, this is not right.
When was she ever a Jedi?
Right.
What?
Right. How was she training Rey to do anything besides bake cookies? That's right. That's sexist. Edit that part out.
But how was she to train Rey to be a Jedi when she wasn't a Jedi?
Right.
Oh, we got to make her a Jedi.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Luke trained her because it's her sister. Why not? The bloodline is still there, sustainable.
Okay.
Yeah, that was weird, dude.
You know.
That was weird.
So she trains to be a Jedi, and then she just never fucking does it for like 40 years.
Right. Right. And arguably, here's the thing. Like again, in the EU, which is the thing which they were constantly pulling from here and there, like taking little leads from. She did have some training, you know, and she did become like in the books, not just in the comics, but she did have like some run-ins with the dark side of the Force that she may have gone towards the dark side of the Empire, whatever the case may be. There were some real things which could have happened in the Timothy Zahn books and various other contributing authors. But, you know, those things are for... Stop trying to cram all that shit into a movie. I think here's the thing. Like, I think directors and...
See, let me pause you for a second. This is exactly what they did with the X-Men movies, and I find it interesting that you're even less critical of it than you were in the X-Men movies, where they basically, with more reverence than X-Men, but it's still the same concept. Mm-hmm. All this shit is a buffet, and we can just put a little bit of everything on the plate, and and now we're calling this our plate.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, with more reverence than X-Men, because obviously Singer and the other people who did that, they weren't X-Men fans.
Right.
But it's still the same concept. It's just a buffet, yo. We got all this shit. We can do anything we want with all this shit.
Right.
Like, really? Okay.
yeah. And that's the thing. Like, people are saying how, you know, they're respecting and disrespecting the source materials. Like, well, yeah, that's exactly what they're doing, because they're taking what they want out of the source material, and they pillaged it, and they put it back to pieces on the chessboard differently when they're supposed to go. It's like, no, there's a reason that the king and queen are in the center. Then you have the knights. Then you have the bishops, and you have the rooks. There's a reason it's that way. It's designed for perpetuating the story, making sure that the things are moving forward and protected and all those things, right? And they just disregard all that. It's just checkers in them, you know. Oh, there's one jumps the other, you know. One jumps the other, you know. It's like, okay, well, that's good if that's what you want to do as far as getting to the end of the story, end of the game, but that's not how it's to be done, you know. And you know, it's just, I don't know. Maybe that's a wasted metaphor, but you know, I'm kind of you know, in terms of which IP I felt more closer to, I would say it'd be the X-Men. And I say X-Men because purely of the fact that it was a red thing. You know, there's like I always say, there's a theater of the mind thing that goes along with that, and the gorgeous pictures and the storytelling, Chris Claremont, they were all succinct, and it was a moment in our youth that we had stories which were reaching and going someplace else. The problem with Star Wars, it was too few and far between, and you had to go to the movie theater for it, and it was only 2 hours, where you could read a comic over and over again. Movies back then weren't that accessible. You know, you got a videotape years later. You know, it was the special edition or whatever the case may be, where he changed certain things in the background or whatever.
Well, yeah, maybe about 5 years later.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Now it's
early 80s.
Yeah. Now it's 3 months later. You get it on download. If that.
Maybe not even 3 months now, yo.
You know? So it's like the way they deliver content now is just so much more, so much less involved, and you can have it at your fingertips, you know, in no time. So it's like there's no reason to digest it and get the flavors and absorb the flavors and content of anything, because it's like it's just all there for you. Go ahead, if you want to watch Star Wars today on, you know, Disney Plus, go ahead, just click it on, watch all 9 episodes, whatever, and be done with it, you know?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because even as it relates to Star Wars, like this last trilogy, I can definitely see myself saying, hey, this weekend I'm going to watch all 3 films back to back to back and see how I enjoy them, or if I enjoy them, being able to, quote, binge them all at the same time. I do plan on that being the case, but I do find myself being completely overwhelmed with media, Star Wars and anything else, where even things that I really, really enjoy, I don't want to rewatch it.
Right.
I just feel like there's too much other shit that I got to get to. I don't have time to go back and rewatch Mandalorian or rewatch Stranger Things seasons 1, 2, and 3 before 4 comes out.
Right.
Or rewatch Watchmen, which was very, very good and was, exceptional in many ways and in many cases.
Sure.
But it's just like I just don't find myself having the time and more so the desire to want to go back and reconsume.
Right.
So
you're right.
I don't know.
No, I agree with that. I think the last thing I did that to that watched in that manner would have been Game of Thrones, and that was because there was so much.
The last season was coming.
Last season was coming. There was so much going on, and you wanted to be able to pick up on the inclinations of what the characters were going towards and leaning towards, and that's why I did that. But I don't think you're right, man. I think it's just so much out there that you can be consumed. I think it's just if you don't get it the first time, then I think there's a crapshoot out there now. There's so much going on. The things have become so easy to produce, or a lot cheaper to produce, and so many different effects artists and effects houses and things like that out there, and so many different stories that everybody's looking for their money pit or their money grab, their treasure. And I think everybody's kind of shooting for the stars, and that's great for people that want to watch that kind of stuff. It's great for people to try and get it and understand it, but it becomes just so on your senses, dude. It's like overwhelming, dude. It's I was chatting with one of our good friends from the show in the past, and I want to say his name right now because I might screw it up. But he was in a convention, and he was saying how his head started to hurt at the convention because it was just too much good art, and it was like I've actually had experience myself in the past. I don't know about you, where there's so much visual assault going on, so you get a fucking headache. It's like a brain freeze, like eating too much ice. Or are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Like eating too much ice cream or something at the same time, where you get like this headache because it's a visual assault on your senses. You can't take it all in at the same time. So that's what he was getting, and it's like, yeah, I totally get it, man. That happens to me all the time, especially at cons. It's like where I turn this way. Oh, it's that art. Oh, it's that art. Oh, it's that art. Oh, it's that art. I was like, oh shit, I just can't take this all in right now. I get a headache. So that's what's happening with I think kids, the youth are avoiding that because the way they choose to get into things, they pick it and they watch it and they get a lot out of it, but they don't take it too serious. What's next?
Or they find one thing that they like and then they stay on that.
Right.
And
like Skylar.
Like they're good. I'm sorry.
Well, like Skylar loves Star Wars, man. And
right, but that's like, for instance. And I think I mentioned this on a previous episode of the show, but she watched every episode of The Office on Netflix and YouTube.
Right.
Every episode.
Right.
Just ate it all up one by one until she'd gotten through all of it and became a fan of it.
Right.
And I think there are huge swaths of other things that she just completely ignores as a result.
Mm-hmm.
So she was going through a horror movie phase for a while. Mm-hmm. And I was telling her, I said, and I forget, I think it's Let the Right One In, not Let Me In, but the Swedish version, not the American remake of the horror film, the vampire horror film.
Okay.
And I said, oh, you should watch this. It's really good. And then I said, but watch the Swedish version first. That was the original.
Right.
She never went to it. I sent her the link. She never watched it. It's like, okay, she's not on. And part of it is because it's coming from me.
Right.
So, what the fuck is she going to listen to me for?
Right.
That's one.
Right.
And then there was another one where I said, look, it's not a big budget, perfectly executed film, but watch Attack the Block.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see Attack the Block?
I didn't. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's a sci-fi horror movie where basically aliens land in the hood, but it's it's set in Britain.
Okay. Well, that was with John Boyega, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And I told her, I said, Finn's in it, but he's young and he's basically like a thug.
Right.
I said, but it's really funny. It's really good. The characters are interesting. And my daughter is prone to, trying to do a fake British accent sometimes.
Oh, nice.
Which she doesn't pull it off very well.
But she tries, though. That's good.
Yeah. But anyway, I said, "Oh, you'd like it." I said, "Finn's in it." I said, "It's got a great cast." I said, "Actually, one of the other actors in it is the current day Doctor Who. Not that she knows who Doctor Who is."
Okay.
But I said, there's just all kinds of interesting things going on there. I said, "You would enjoy this movie," and it's a very young cast.
Right.
And she's just not. She hasn't watched it yet. So anyway, to conclude, I just think that the way people consume things today, especially younger folks versus us, because we're adapting. They're just living.
Mm-hmm.
We're adapting from DVDs and VHS to streaming.
Right.
It's just streaming for them. It's pretty much always just been like streaming DVDs and now just streaming.
Right.
So I just wonder, how these films will live and breathe and endure in the future as a result. Star Wars specifically, how they will endure in the future because of how, people consume media today and how quickly they do it. And I just wonder if, my daughter loved The Force Awakens at first, and she cried in The Last Jedi when Luke died, and then she cried like a baby at the end of this one when Kylo Ren died. I was like, but he was a mass murderer. You knew he was going to die, right?
Right.
You didn't expect him to live, did you?
Right.
and then so now she hates The Force Awakens.
Oh.
And she actually digs some of the prequels.
Okay.
She went back and watched the prequels.
Nice.
So I don't know. I don't have any answers.
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer in what you're saying and the through line and all that is finding characters which touch on humanistic qualities that everybody can relate to. Everybody can relate to a person that's passionate, that is angry, because anger is something we all feel. So for Kylo to be the person that got the most emotion out of her makes sense, because he was one that exhibited the most range throughout the entire 3 episodes.
Well, to your point, we can end it. We can end it. But to your point from earlier, I think that's part of the reason why they had him be a young character and to take his helmet off. Is to establish him for Boyega, for Rey, to establish them as youthful characters that are specifically designed to appeal to a younger audience. Visually, emotionally, fuck my parents, I'm gonna tear my room up.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Right.
The idea of John Boyega rebelling against, the whole stormtrooper thing and, this kind of Nazi youth, indoctrination, but not like in a rebel without a pause way, more like in a Red Badge of Courage way, where he's just like, fuck it, I'm running. I'm scared. I'm fucking running.
Right.
Anyway, I thought that was an interesting move on JJ's part in The Force Awakens to and to me that was one of the things when everybody kept saying that The Force Awakens, it's just like New Hope is. It's like, no, it introduced some things we hadn't ever seen before in a Star Wars film. A conflicted villain from the very beginning, a villain that was evil but very human in his portrayal from the very beginning. A black character who is a central character to the story, a Hispanic character who is a central character to the story. Poe Dameron wasn't quite Han Solo, but John Boyega's character again, he is the reluctant hero. He's not on a hero's journey per se. He is the reluctant hero. I mean, one could even say to this very day, he still doesn't want to fucking be a hero.
Right.
He's just basically running around with a bunch of heroes, and so he's got to try to hang.
Right. Well, I mean, I think in the end, I think an interesting thing that happened in the Ryan saga, the Last Jedi, was when he did actually become a hero. He made a choice at that point to consciously become a hero. Like he was going to sacrifice himself to destroy that beam pulsating, ramrod thing. And then
you mean in the Rise of Skywalker?
No, Force Awakens. Not Force Awakens. I mean in
Last Jedi.
No, the Last Jedi. In the Last Jedi, where they're on the planet with the blood ice or the blood salt. And, exactly. He takes a skiff and he takes the little speeder towards the machine that's gonna ramrod the door.
He's gonna basically like sacrifice.
Right, sacrifice himself. That's when he became a hero. That's when he's gonna make the ultimate sacrifice to become that person. And I think
but when you think about it, it's almost 2 entire films before he really gets to that point.
Right. Well, I don't know.
You know what I'm saying?
I think Finn started to. I think I think Ray gave him the courage. Whatever that was between the two of them, I don't know. It's weird. I think Ray gave him the courage to do that. I think when he realized that there was something else that he liked about Ray that was, I don't know what it was. I thought it was romantic initially, but apparently it's not how they wanted to play it out in terms of the saga. But it seemed like a much more obvious romantic fit to me than her kissing her brother. But essentially, her diet.
Well, that's your Star Wars. That's your granddaddy Star Wars, sir. The family that lays together stays together.
There's more than a lightsaber down there. But anyway. But no, man. I think that Finn's arc as a hero, he made some conscious choices to become that. I think even when he stood up for Rey in the forest and got his back slid open by Kylo, when he picked up that saber and was going to use the saber to fight Kylo, which he did a horrendous job of, that's when he became a hero. To me, a hero, a hero is a person that
I think less so. I think less so.
Okay.
I mean, he's in for me. He's in the moment.
Right.
He's in the moment, and he's defensive of this person that he likes or whatever.
Right.
That's one thing. I think it was another thing, like you pointed out on the that planet at the end of Last Jedi, where he makes a decision.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, look, someone's got to do something. I'm going to be the one to do it,
right.
And I'm going to do it.
Right.
I'm going to sacrifice myself.
And then Rose Tico takes him out of that.
Yeah, I know.
Foiled again by Rose Tico. Let me stop, man. I like the character, man. It had a lot of potential. I kind of wanted to see her go there and make it, but it just didn't. It didn't happen, dude. It was like, okay, like you said, there's too many pots. There's too many characters in this last movie, and some of the things that could have been to the main cast, the first 2 films, could have gone to this last cast. So they were trying to, put more Star Wars toys out there. And put more feelers out there for more films,
That concludes this episode of Sidebar Forever, hosted by Dwight Clark, Swain Hunt, and Adrian Johnson. You can find us online at sidebarforever.com. Any emails or questions can be directed to us at sidebarforever@gmail.com. And also, subscribe to us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. Sidebar Forever is copyright 2020. Dwight Clark, Swain Hunt, and Adrian Johnson.